Hi, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review. Let's talk about the 2024 Arrow 4K edition of the original Conan the Barbarian. (1982's) Conan the Barbarian was a big movie for me as a kid because I had read some of the Robert Howard books and was kind of into all that stuff when it came out. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger's big real debut. He had been in Pumping Iron before that. They had a pretty good director. He was Academy Award nominated for writing the script for Apocalypse Now, John Milius, and he rewrote a script from Oliver Stone. Yeah. Now, he said at the time that he ripped off some classic Japanese movies like Seven Samurai and Kwaidan, and there's parts of this that feel almost like a Western to me more than like a fantasy epic. But anyway, Universal Pictures and 20th Century Fox released this thing, a $20 million budget. In 1981-82, that was a lot of money, and it went on to gross about $60 to $70 million in its theatrical run. But over the years, it grossed more than $300 million in home video rights. It spawned the sequel, Conan the Destroyer, which I've always hated. And then eventually there was that 2011 reboot with Conan that I don't hate at all, actually. I'm going to go back and rewatch it now that I've watched this one. Arrow released a 4K edition of both Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, and at the time I just really wasn't stoked about it. And it was pretty pricey to get this limited edition box set with both movies and all the extras and the posters and a book and all this stuff. Well, and they also released each movie separately in these limited editions, which sold out incredibly quick. So I picked up a standard edition on a big Arrow sale in December. Matter of fact, you're going to hear quite a few Arrow reviews going forward because I have a stack of these Arrow movies that I all came in because I got a great deal getting them all together. And I added Conan basically to get the free shipping. It was cheaper than it had ever been, and you get the movie, 3 different versions of the movie in 4K, fully restored with Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision, and you get a Blu-ray of all the extras. You don't get the book, and you don't get the hard case, and you don't get the poster. But you get all the other meat of the stuff, and as cheap as I got it, I really can't complain about that. Now, I haven't been through all the extras yet, but that's one of the great things that Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, and some of these other boutique labels do is they collect brand new stuff, or they put old stuff together with new stuff. And there is a whole Blu-ray of extras. If there was just 1 or 2 things, they could have put it on the 4K, but they didn't. You have a whole Blu-ray of an incredible amount of extras that I will probably do when I review another Conan movie, and I'll talk about, because I didn't really have time to watch them last night, to be perfectly honest, and wanted to record the podcast while I was still, top of mind. So watching this movie, I have owned the Blu-ray copy, which I believe was the international version. It turns out there's 3 cuts. Took them a year to edit this movie down to what we got, and they cut some of the sheer violence out of it. Violence was a big thing back at the time, even as much as it is now, and some of the action scenes really went over the top with blood and stuff, as the comic had done. But times were as where they were, and they wanted a big hit, so they trimmed some of that. So on the Arrow 4K, you get the theatrical version, the international cut, which is a couple minutes longer, and then you get the extended version, which is the longest version at 2 hours and 10 minutes. I've watched the first 2 versions most of my life, so I didn't really notice a whole lot of difference in this new version. I will tell you that those scenes where like he's gazing at a sunrise or a sunset are some of the most spectacular things I've seen on a 4K recently. There's a lot of it that looks grainy, that they didn't have the best lighting because they were using natural light, but that's the way it looked in theaters, so I don't have a problem with that. And some of the scenes with like some of the magic when he meets the witch and the fire effects, some of the explosions and things like that, the fires really resonate with the Dolby Vision HDR. It really kind of pops out of what's a very theatrical looking picture. Movie's already gotten really high marks for its 4K release and restoration, and I can't really say anything bad about it. If you're expecting something that looks like a James Cameron movie, it does not. It looks like a 1982 film that was filmed on 35 millimeter film. They have done a lot to restore it. Like I said, some scenes look incredible. Some of the scenes of close-ups, the veins, they got more than just Schwarzenegger. They got all these bodybuilders in the movie. So there's veins and rippling muscles and sweat and fire and dripping things, and that all of the little details and the extras and I didn't notice any black crushing. Matter of fact, what I noticed in some of the night scenes, like where he and his buddy things are going well, they have money and they're running from city to city and getting in trouble and stuff like that, doing the things that Conan did in a lot of the books and comics. there's a scene where it's like at dusk. It's right at really dark. And I noticed at the bottom of my screen how the right side of the screen kind of faded into the letterbox bars because my black levels are set pretty correctly. Whereas some of the other scenes weren't quite black. And so the left side of the TV, you could still see the bars for the movie, if that makes any sense. So I noticed a lot of things where this just looks so much better than the Blu-ray ever did. The Dolby Atmos mix, really good. I didn't really crank it up as loud as I normally do, but there were a few scenes where I did. There's a lot of directionality. Again, with the witch scene, he throws her into the fire, she catches fire, and then she kind of spins around the room as a spell and then kind of goes out into the sky, and he watches her a couple of times. Those scenes are all flying around the 7.1, flying around the overheads and out. The music, where the one place where the Dolby Atmos makes a difference is music. If you buy this on 4K, it's gonna load up and you're gonna get to the menu. And from the menu, you can choose the original mono, stereo, whatever, or you can choose the new Dolby Atmos. When you change it, the menu changes, right? And so the menu defaults to the old soundtrack. And I pop the disc in and it gets to the menu and that Basil Poledouris score is just incredible. It's one of the best movie scores of all time, actually. And it starts rumbling through your speakers. And I'm like, that sounds great. Well, then I flipped it over to Atmos while I was still in the menu, and it just filled the room. I've never heard it sound that good. It still sounds a little thinner than, say, a modern soundtrack because it's probably taken from the original reels of the film. But throughout the course of the movie, there was a lot of directionality, a lot of things that flew around, a lot of ambience when he's in caves and things, dripping water and stuff like that. It was just a very immersive sound mix. All in all, I give high marks to it. And if you got the limited edition with all the other stuff, I wish I had picked that one up. This is a really great release. I didn't get Destroyer. Every time I watch that movie, I'm more I remember sitting in the theater a couple years later and how Conan is rated R. There's some decent blood, some decent violence, and a couple things off screen that you knew. Well, like I think it was pretty artistic how when he's a kid and they kill his mom. Sorry for spoilers, but this is the first 5-10 minutes. You don't see anything but a head of hair kind of fall to the side and then the body falls away. It was a very artistic way to show that Thulsa Doom, the bad guy, just beheaded his mom and didn't even think about it, right? It was just done. There's a lot of artistic touches like that John Milius would go on to direct things like Red Dawn and then kind of diminishing returns on the rest, Executive Decision. There was a few other movies. He went back to writing movies later on. He's been Academy Award nominated for his writing. From an Oliver Stone script, I would love to see somebody produce the original script. I can imagine it was probably more sword and sorcery stuff. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, this is the movie that made him. He's good in the movie. There's a lot of it where he doesn't play Arnold. You know, we got used to seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger play Arnold in a lot of movies. He really tried to be he's Conan. I mean, there's a lot of scenes where he's Conan. Was that because he wasn't a very good actor at the time? I don't know. But to watch it now, it's different than what the Arnold we came to know. He's really trying to inhabit I don't think he does through the entire film. I think there's a couple of scenes where like, okay, I would have probably done another take on that one. But for the most part, I think he does a good job playing this character. Like I said, Conan is not exactly a deep character to play. James Earl Jones is the bad guy. Remember, this is 1982, so Empire Strikes Back just came out. He's still not the legend that he became based on some of the voices he was. And to see him actually in the movie with that voice, it just gives gravitas to his character. I'm glad he didn't play like a bad guy in every science fiction movie that was made after this, because it would have kind of cheapened this. His Thulsa Doom, pretty good. Again, I've read the books. I know a little bit more about these characters than we get to see in a 2-hour film. I think he did fine with the role. He definitely was following the direction of the director and fits the movie to a T. The scene where he literally turns into a snake, pretty well done, even by today's standards. I'm pretty impressed, not only the makeup, but the visual effects work in the film. So James Earl Jones, Sandahl Bergman plays the love interest. At the time, she's a little too butch for me, but you got to think this is the time of barbarians and stuff. I mean, she's an attractive woman and everything. I just thought, like the slave girl they gave Conan earlier was better looking than Sandahl. But they have a great love, and then she's part of the catalyst to get us towards the end of the movie. Max von Sydow is in the movie. I will watch him in anything. And Mako, the Asian martial artist actor from the 70s and 80s, he narrates the whole thing because he's the magician, the wizard that they run into later in the movie. He's not even in the movie until about halfway through. Watching it now, I think it holds up pretty well. The extended version, I might go back and watch the international. I don't know that I would ever watch the theatrical version again, just because there's extra stuff in here, extra stuff that I like. It looks great. It sounds great. This is a great release on 4K and one of my top ones of the year. Why don't I like Destroyer? Because they went from an R-rated, pretty good, pretty close retelling of the story of Conan to a PG-13 kids film. That's really what it feels like. Except you could tell they edited the end. There was some pretty gross stuff in there, but they wanted at the time, PG-13 was a big deal. That brought in more people to the movie. I get it. But all in all, with the spoiled child aspect of that entire movie from 1984, I just remember sitting in the theater and how disappointed I was because they basically tied the one arm behind Conan's back. He really couldn't be the Conan that we loved in this movie. And as far as the reboot goes, well, I think Momoa did a good job with it. I think it probably has some problems that were inherent in the script version and the director who made it, but it's been a while since I've seen it. I just remember I've always enjoyed that version of Conan. It felt a little more authentic to the original books, but it also was a little more fantastic than these two movies. So, all in all, should you pick it up? Absolutely. If you have one of the older versions, absolutely. The extras alone and the better picture, better sound are worth it. Arrow's knocked another one out of the park. I'll go through the extras. I could probably do an entire podcast on that. Conan the Barbarian is available now. It's been out for a few months. You should pick it up on Arrow's 4K. It looks and sounds muscular. Fantastic. I'm Scott. I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts on the way. Have a spectacular day.